Saturday, 22nd of August, or is it 23rd actually, I think, 23rd. And Lucy Connolly got released from prison 2 days ago. She was jailed for 380 days. She was in jail for 380 days. She actually had more to serve. Um, but yeah, she's calling herself a political prisoner, Labour's political prisoner, and she's right. She was in prison for an X, or as we call it, a tweet, an X post, which was in, well, it was in bad taste at the time, but taking all the context together, for a start, I think it was a day when three young girls were murdered in Southport. That was the day she said it. So there was a lot of context. None of that seems to have been taken into consideration or whatever. And the jailing was totally out of proportion, and really it was unjust in every sense. Both, she never even got a trial, or she was told to plead guilty in that. There's a story behind it, but she explained she done two interviews on Friday. She done one with Dan Whitten that I'm aware of, one with Dan Whitten, which was excellent. This is it here. Britain's political prisoner Lucy Connolly locked up for 380 days for a tweet she deleted within hours. That's right, she deleted it about 3 hours later, and actually someone must have screenshot it and reported it, maybe to the police or something, but we don't know who it was, uh, and that's what got her in trouble. But the police were ridiculous, the justice system was ridiculous, you know. She sits down with Dan for her first interview just one day after being released from prison, and that's because Dan's been really saying a lot about it on his excellent YouTube channel, which everyone should follow, Dan Whitten Outspoken. And yeah, I mean, I don't watch legacy media, so this is the sort of thing I watch. And how many followers is it? View subscribers has he got now? It doesn't say. But yeah, it was excellent. And also, she done an interview with Alison Pearson of the Daily Telegraph, who's also been saying a lot about her. And she refers to Lucy. She says a lot in posts like, "We are all Lucys," or "The Lucys are against Labour now," which is true in my opinion. So if you imagine Lucy, if you compare her to female Labour MPs and you think, who do those being described as Lucys identify with? I think it's more likely they're going to identify with Lucy, really. And that's even before they've heard her talk, and she's an excellent thinker in that. Sounds like she's a bit of a reformer as well, a political reformer. I mean, she might end up with Reform or Advance UK or helping Rupert Law with Restore Britain. I know that she's going to speak to him in Parliament in an official way in some sort of meeting. I don't know if it's public or what, but and also I think she was meant to be talking with um, some of Trump administration today. I don't know whether it be the UK embassy or what. You know, I mean, normally I wouldn't be in favour of that, or I wouldn't be bothered with it. But I think it's good because for what she's been locked up with, and Keir said to Trump that we're a free speech country. He said it twice, but something like that proves that we aren't really. Anyway, yeah, this was the Alison Pearson interview. It was on the Telegraph channel, which has got, I don't know, nearly 6 million subscribers. I'm really surprised at that, because I thought legacy media was going, but I know that they're switching on to YouTube and that, but personally I just prefer the independents, really. Not the not the newspaper, the independent YouTubers, maybe. But this was an excellent interview, I thought, as well. I think the two interviews, they both complemented each other because they were different styles. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dan Whitten and his show, but sometimes he goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. He's taking on that one about Candace Owen says about the thing his wife, the French Macron's wife, which really is ridiculous sounding. So, but most of the time he's spot on, and so their styles were different. Alison Pearson's was more sort of, you could say, female, if you're allowed to say that now. Dan's was a bit more sort of, not, he was very sympathetic towards her, more, I don't know, going along. No, it doesn't matter anyway. They're both good, they're both worth thinking. Apparently she spoke in an interview with his son as well, which I think was in the paper today, and it called, she said, I was Labour's political prisoner, which is correct. So, yeah, these are definitely, but I think she's going to be a big problem for Labour now because it doesn't look as if she's just going to fade into oblivion. I don't know whether she's got some things she's got to follow for early release, you know. Cause I'll need to check her ex account. Apparently she's 42, she's a childminder, and apparently her husband, who's a Tory councillor, he's got some sort of cancer maybe, you know, and they've went through all this. Uh, yeah, well, let's take a look at this anyway. Here's just some things I scribbled down. I mean, I forgot a lot of that, but from what I've heard of her, she's a very good thinker, and it sounds like she's a sort of common sense reformer. You know, she was saying, like, she said the police, she wasn't happy with how the police portrayed her in the interview, how they handled it all. I'm not surprised at that, really. Personally, I think the police, they need a how did I do rating that the public can easily do by mobile phone. You know, a 5-star rating, give comment for every interaction if you want to improve standards. Because personally, I think the police are out of control in general. And we're talking about even just watching them arrest people at the protests that are going on just now. You know, they, a lot of times they're nearly breaking people's arms and putting the handcuffs on too tight. And it's just basic stuff. And they're even putting them down in the ground, like, and I know a way you definitely shouldn't, in my opinion. I mean, to me, they need a bit of martial art training, in my opinion, especially for restraining techniques and things. And but also, I feel that she felt they didn't represent her correctly through the process, which I'm not surprised at either. I'm surprised that they done it to her so openly. You know, they really. She gave bad advice the whole way, but that's because it was so ridiculous. She shouldn't have even been there. You know, it was unique, the situation she found herself in. When I say unique, there's a few other tweeters who were put in, still in jail. One of them hung himself. We don't know, I don't know yet why he hung himself. You know, we've still not heard, you know, was it because he was frightened of other people on the wing or something? We never, just never. And what I find anyway in our democracy, a lot of things we never find the answer to, including really big things, you know, like the Southport murder, with still lots of empty spaces there. Like, I thought I heard something like the boy was getting Amazon stuff delivered to his neighbours and stuff like that, and he was going round to collect it, you know. But nobody said anything. I've not had that confirmed. I think that was somebody who was investigating. But these sort of stories, because that might have been how he got the stuff, you know. I don't know. And then when you look inside his house, it seemed to be a total mess. And they were saying that he was actually staying in the living room. I don't know. Just really, you learn that there's massive things. We don't even know how many people are in the country illegally, really, you know. Um, that's the sort of, it's just a total mess. I'm amazed that it functions, mainly because we're still quite a high trust society, but I think that's going to change. But on this matter with the police, like I say, I mean, I've no confidence in the police handling things well once they've got you charged or whatever, you know. Really, at that time, you're in a lawless situation, in my opinion, until the prosecutor, fiscal, or whatever gives you a charge. You don't know what's going to happen, really. And it was interesting that Nicola Sturgeon said that when she was interviewed by the police, or the whole thing to do with the police, it was one of the worst things in her life. But I wonder how she feels in their competence and how they handled it. how they interviewed her. It wouldn't surprise me if she's saying it's the worst thing in her life, but and maybe she thought she was going to get stitched up or something. I don't know. Because why would you be afraid if you're being interviewed by the police if you're totally innocent? You know. Um, but yeah, I would say that the police, you need a how did I do rating so that everything's, and when you're being questioned and that, you need to be able to record that. Even your arrest, I think you should be able to record it and all that. All these things, if you want to improve the police standards, but because to me, really, once the police have arrested you or something or whatever, or interviewed you, you're in a lawless zone, basically. Um, because we've been a high trust society, police, we haven't really bothered about it, really, most of us. But now, because I'm not sure if we're in a high trust area anymore, and also we've got a big change going on that's going to change us. And also because the internet, social media, people are hearing all the stories now. We don't need to rely on legacy media. And so we're hearing it and we're not happy and we're seeing videos, people getting arrested, the way they're being manhandled and that, it's just ridiculous. I'm talking about people even that I don't agree with them or whatever, I mean arrested. I'm just thinking like, I don't know if I can say it yet because it's a retrial or something, but anyway, just even Rupert Lowe, the way they dealt with him, with his guns and that, just so she's going to sue the police. This might end up getting a big change where the police improve, but as I say, the one way you could change the police is how did I do rating whenever you've been interacted with the police. If you want to improve the system, that is. It doesn't feel like that's the way. I heard that West Streeting's going to bring in something like that for the NHS. Um, but anyway, she sounds a real reformer and common sense. So compared to, and now the females in Britain are going to be able to compare her to the left MPs, the Yvette Coopers, the Rachel Reeves, the Jess Phillips and that thing. See who do I identify with, and it's probably not going to be the left MPs in my opinion. So they've got that, and she's looked at the women in prison. She's thinking these women shouldn't be in prison, and a lot of times she was saying she thinks that maybe it's to do with men, like maybe their boyfriends have got them involved in dealing with drugs or whatever, that sort of thing. It was interesting what she was saying. What else? Yeah, and also the worst nightmare for Labour though is it looks as if she's going to be in the media a lot, which is great because it's interesting her points of view. I think she's a thinker that we should be hearing of. Very well worthy. And this is what I've said about this is the great thing about the internet and that. We're not reliant on legacy media or on politicians anymore. We don't. I mean, I regard myself as very interested in politics. I don't really follow either of them. Yeah, she said a lot more interesting things. I've not got the stuff here. Maybe I'll check Gemini and see. Well, the first 2 points. I mean, the actual tweet. I mean, I would need to read it again, but it was in poor taste. But at the time, I think it was the day of the Southport murders of three little girls. She'd lost her own baby son due to negligence. He was about 18 months old when he died, and she knew he was ill. She took him to hospital about 4 times, but they were saying it's nothing serious. Turned out he had dehydration and kidney failure. I don't know why, but she knew something was wrong, but uh, and she blames the hospital for it. And then eventually they didn't admit negligence, but finally they did once it went to court or whatever. And she said that it was her husband who found her son dead. Harry was his name, in the court or whatever. Yeah, so with that and the three girls getting murdered, and she was saying that it's not just the families of those three girls, it's all the other girls, all that were there. They've got to think of that all their lives and etc. So she was really angry about it, as most Brits, well, all Brits were really. and we were sort of misled on the day by the police, as to who they were, who was detained for it and that. So yeah, I've not got. I mean, and she deleted it as well, like 3 hours later, and somebody took a screenshot. So, uh, and she was saying she never get any. At first they came round to ask her about it, but then they came round again. I don't know if it's a week later or something. And from there on in, she was remanded. She didn't get any chance to, discuss it with people. So she was saying all that. Um, so she never had time to think about it or whatever. And she was sort of told that the best thing to do was plead guilty. Because this was, ironically, it was Keir Starmer who was in charge of the criminal prosecution unit in 2011 during those Tottenham riots. And those riots were a bit crazy back then, where people got locked up, within a week of pleading guilty. And they were comparing her with that Ricky Jones guy, or whatever his name, this councillor. Personally, I think he was guilty, really, because he was using a slit throat gesture and stuff like that. He said people need to be, I don't know, but he came up with a lot of ridiculous excuses, including attention deficit disorder or whatever, and a lot of rubbish. But he got bail, so he pleaded not guilty as well. It took a year to go to court, and the jury found him not guilty. But then, as I've said before, I don't think you can trust juries anymore. I mean, in the old days, I would say British juries would judge you on merit, but now I think it's more to do, we've got low trust juries really. We need to know the build up of the juries now. I don't believe in the jury system anyway, but now I'm not keen on the judge system either. It would need to be three judges or something, but I'm not a fan of either now, really. More a judge than a jury. But now juries, because juries could go for identity or politics. So, because I think those protesters who toppled the statue in Bristol in around about 2021 for that protest, I think they were found not guilty as well. And for what they were charged with sort of vandalism, they were obviously guilty. So for a jury to find them not guilty, personally, I think either it was a political decision or an identity decision, So we really need to know the makeup now of the juries to have trust in it. Because, like they say, justice has to be seen to be done. And now it's not being seen to be done because we don't know the makeup of the jury. Maybe we should even be told how they were thinking. I think they do that in America, don't they? Or at least the jurors are allowed to talk afterwards. Um, because the justice system isn't being seen to be done. And I don't think not being allowed to talk about it until the trial helps either now anymore. We've moved on from those times really. Uh, she believed it would be the quickest route home to her daughter, and she did not think she would get a fair trial, which was correct. Uh, well, she didn't even get a trial really. Um, I'm just going to ignore the first two because I don't really. I mean, she was actually saying that she's a childminder, and about 90% of the kids she looks after are um, usually children of newcomers to Britain. And she even, round about the week, I think she got arrested or whatever, she was a sort of sponsor of someone's visa, one of the parents' visa claims, extension claims or something. So I mean, really, Labour picked for the worst one to make a. I mean, they would say they didn't pick her, but I don't know how she get picked out of all the thingies. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse one to go to thingy because I think a lot of British women are going to be able to identify with her. And she says that her own family, her mother and that were sort of left-leaning family. I don't know about the dad, but I'm talking about her mother. because she's married a Tory councillor. I would imagine she was a wet Tory, maybe. I don't know. Um, she says she doesn't always agree with her husband in politics, but she herself, her mother, seemed to be a left-leaning, just centre-left, I think. So she referred to herself as one of Sir Keir Starmer's political prisoners. Connolly mentioned that she would be meeting with officials from Donald Trump's administration today, I think, who she said are big advocates for free speech. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she turns up for Reform or Advance UK or Robert's Restore Britain movement as maybe a justice spokesperson or a women's spokesperson or minister even. Something like that, you know. I mean, she could do anything, but I wouldn't surprise if that's because she was saying she wasn't happy about the reason a lot of the women were in prison, etc. She said her red mist had clouded her judgment. She was upset and angry beyond belief. And she doesn't advocate violence, of course. Yeah, that's a good interview. Yeah, I was just asked to elaborate, see what other points there is. She said she was arrested 8 days after deleting the tweet and felt the police were trying to hammer her. Well, she was right, I think, from what she said. It's really interesting hearing that, and she might be taking legal advice about the police treatment. So it would be good. I think the police really need an overhaul, an overview. I mean, Rupert Low's been through it as well, you know. I mean, they're out of control. Like I say, I think all it needs is a how did I do rating and the ability to comment and the right to record whenever you interact. Because they probably record you, you know, on their chest or whatever, or chest camera. She believes the legal system treated her unfairly, citing a case involving a Labour councillor. Yeah, who was acquitted for a similar offence. She personally says that he shouldn't have been charged. But personally, I think he was quite bad, especially for a councillor, you know. He's maybe a councillor, but what he said in his defence, I mean, really, it didn't sound fit to be a councillor from what he was defence, judging on his defence of his own character. Yeah, and the judge didn't take any mitigating circumstances into, you know, ridiculous. She felt she was demonised by the media and authorities because she is a Tory councillor's wife. Yeah, this is interesting because I would say it's a legacy media, you know, including the Daily Mail and that. I don't think she's done an interview with the Daily Mail. Maybe she's either not happy with or she's not done one yet. But I would expect her to do one with them. So maybe she wasn't happy. Quite right, probably. I don't even read the Daily Mail anymore. Well, I do a bit, but nowhere near as much as I used to. I used to daily all the time, but it's not really my go-to place anymore. I really go to X now, really. Connolly said she pleaded guilty against her husband's wishes to get out of prison faster and be with her daughter. Yeah, because her husband told her not to, but because he was meeting lawyers outside, but she was in remand, so she was seeing it in another way, you know. She claims her case was treated differently than normal, with a much heftier sentence. Yeah, well, that's what happened. I mean, Keir, they were really Keir Stasi law emergency laws, really, that he brought in himself. So, and like I said, the same thing happened in 2011. But now social media is much more thingy, because back then people were using Blackberries for a start. On her time in prison, she stated she was a model prisoner and was well liked by other inmates. She was treated differently and was denied privileges such as temporary leave, that's right, which were granted to other women with more serious convictions. She said she was visited by Prevent, the counter-terrorism group, but was cleared of any wrongdoing. Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous. She believed she was a political prisoner, yeah, she was, and that the authorities wanted to make an example of her, which she says was influenced by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Yeah, it was. Like I say, I think he's the only Prime Minister that I've ever disliked. Not just for the way he treats his rivals or whatever, but also how he's treated his own side as well, including Jeremy Corbyn. She also mentioned, I mean, he's devious, that's what I think, you know. She also mentioned being physically harmed by prison officers when she was forcibly moved to a different wing. Yeah, this was a few months ago. She said it was officers from a different wing. It wasn't the ones that she usually was with. She got on well with them. Um, she said that the experience of losing her son to medical negligence helped her cope with her time in prison, as she had been through worse. Yeah, that's true. Uh, the authorities used her tweet to deflect attention from the Southport murders. She argues that many women in prison should not be there and that the money spent on their incarceration should be better used for housing, mental health and rehab. She is now an advocate for prison reform and hopes to use her experience to create positive change. I was on. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Well, I can't find that. Maybe it's paid for, behind a paywall. So I think she done one today, not unless it was fake stuff that I saw on X. I'm just looking to see who else she's talked to. ITV News Anglia. I think that's the sort of area she's from. Uh, She says the police were dishonest in their statement. Yeah, that's right, that's what she said. That suggested she told officers she did not like. She said she is considering legal action against them. I really hope she goes through with it, because the police really need an overhaul. Quality control, basically. Sky News, she's done Sky News as well, so she never meant to incite violence, and that the murder of 3 children had sent her into a rage due to the death of her own child 14 years prior. Uh, Police interview. Um, well, she's not happy about that. Alright, that's it. It's really worth noting, but I think she's going to be a nightmare for Labour. Labour at the moment are like 20% in the polls. Anything from like 24% to 18%, and find out now. I mean, personally, at 18%, if you're under 20% for a long time, I think you should call a general election, because you don't have a mandate from the people, like that. They don't even have a mandate as it is. I mean, they get 33% of 59% of voters. So they get the lowest winning winning party vote ever. Well, in percent terms, I think, possibly in total votes as well. They get less votes than Jeremy Corbyn in 2019. Labour did, and they get 2/3 of the MPs. So that's ridiculous. They get 66% of the MPs. That just doesn't make sense. It just shows our democratic system's rubbish, really. We need to go to the Swiss electoral system where we vote on issues rather than for parties and party hampers. Yeah, so that's about all at the moment. It's worth following Lucy Connolly up, see what she's up to. But I think she's going to end up working with Restore Britain, possibly Advance, probably, possibly Reform, or yeah. And I think she's going to be a nightmare for Labour. And maybe she's going to finally sink Labour into oblivion, really. Because now women can compare her to Labour MPs,